everyone, welcome to my review of Strikers 1945-2 by Psikyo. In today's video we're going to be comparing the PCB arcade version to the Switch port to the Steam port and finally get to the bottom of this mystery about how accurate these ports are to the arcade version, if they're worth buying or do you need to emulate by other means or even pick up a PCB yourself, because what's cool about the Psikyo PCBs compared to stuff like Cave and most other shmups out there is that they're actually pretty affordable and pretty plentiful, easy to track down. So I was happy to pick up this Psikyo PCB I think about 6 months ago, but my schedule has finally cleared up enough to make this video. And to begin, we actually have a rare instance of product placement, so allow me to set the scene. You're on a third date. Things are heating up. The vibe is getting steamy. You're making your way back to your bedroom. You're thinking this is it. You're about to seal the deal when she looks over and says,
"Oh my God!"
Is that a Strikers 1945-2 arcade PCB hot glued to a pizza box? Relationship over. And so to prevent this embarrassment and all your friends from laughing at you, Scanline City has arrived to introduce steel cases for your arcade PCBs. They're cool enough to hook me up with the Strikers 1945-2 case. No longer do I have to hot glue my arcade PCB to a pizza box. It is now safe from dust. I think it is gorgeous, absolutely quality work. So if you want your arcade PCBs to look super fresh, definitely check them out. You know, website, description, all that sort of stuff. So here we are, Strikers 1945-2. For those not as familiar with Psikyo, if you ask a lot of Psikyo aficionados and fans, many people would point to Strikers 1945-2 being among the best games from the developer, alongside stuff like Dragon Blaze and maybe Gunbur 2. And personally, the more that I have played Strikers, the more I have grown attached to it. But if you are familiar with the history of this channel, there was a time long ago in a galaxy far away where I was doing some commissioned reviews for Nintendo Life, and one of the titles that I was commissioned to cover is the Psikyo Shooting Stars Alpha Bravo Double Helix Collection, which included games such as Strikers 1945-1 and Strikers 1945-2. And when I did this review back then, it was met with quite a bit of controversy because as excellent of a game as Strikers 1945-2 and these other Psikyo games are, I felt this collection was very poor. Outside of just the features, the main problem with it was the input lag, which was very high. And so when I was doing this review, a lot of people were commenting, well, how do you even know if the input lag is high? How do you know what the input lag is on the original version? How do you know what the input lag is on the Sega Saturn version? And so I was like, oh, okay, let's get down to the bottom of this. And so it took a few years maybe at this point, but I have arrived. I've gotten my hands on a Strikers 1945-2 board, and I'm going to now investigate what is the input lag on this board as compared to the Nintendo Switch version, and also because people ask me about it quite a bit, the Steam version of the game. So why don't we begin by recapping the Nintendo Switch version. So I went ahead and hooked up all my input lag test equipment that I think is as responsive as you're going to get on a Nintendo Switch. This is ideal. I don't think there is a way to get lower input lag than the methods that I use, which include a custom arcade stick driver, a Brooks board, and a CRT. So here we go. The absolute best performance you're going to get out of the Switch version of the game is 6 frames of input lag. And in my opinion, 6 frames of input lag is just way too high, because for those who do not know, even though the initial stages of the game can be doable at that length of input lag, as you progress further and further into the game, especially when you get to stages 7 and 8, that amount of lag is going to become more and more of a problem because the bullet speeds in the Psikyo games, including Strikers 2, are notoriously fast. This is not Toho or traditional bullet hell where you have a little bit of time to try and adjust to the lag. But I will argue even in those types of games, 6 frames is pretty ridiculous. And so now we can go ahead and take a look at the arcade PCB. So if you get the PCB and you get it hooked up to your CRT, what amount of input lag are we talking about here? So I've got my PCB hooked up to a Super Gun, hooked up to my CRT. Let's go. We get down to 2 frames of input lag, which isn't surprising at all because when I hook up my PGM, I also get 2 frames of input lag. It is possible maybe if I had a better super gun or something, or even faster arcade hardware, maybe you could get it down to a frame. But in a standard sort of setup, 2 frames of input lag, nothing to sneeze at, absolutely excellent. So if we compare the Switch version to the arcade PCB, we have tripled the amount of input lag. Now I'd argue this is a problem because even if you get past that first loop, now we are entering the second loop of the game, which is going to be completely brutal, especially with the suicide bullets. It's going to be absolutely insane. So in my opinion, I definitely stand by my original assessment in that even though the Shooting Stars collection is convenient and nice, and people on the Switch, if you want to get it to try the game out or whatever, sure, but as far as being a faithful port of the game that is worth your money and a definitive release, I would say no. Hopefully we can get a future port on the Switch. And just a fun fact, the game actually runs faster and better on RetroArch on your Switch, even without Run Ahead. So if you hate Run Ahead, it still runs faster. So now we can get to the last question a lot of people have been asking me that I actually had not known until making this video, which is how does the Steam version of the game respond compared to the Nintendo Switch version? So I went ahead and bought the $10 Steam version of the game, again by City Connection, so this is the same developer. Interestingly enough, when they did release the Steam version, they did mention that they had reduced the input lag, and part of me wonders, hopefully, that maybe my review complaining about this actually may have had them think a little bit more about it when they brought it to Steam. But anyway, so we get to the Steam version. Quick heads up, you're going to want to go into the configuration settings and turn off the VSync. That's going to save you a frame of input lag, so be sure to do that before you play the game. Turn off that VSync, play on FreeSync, play with a screen tear, turn off that damn VSync. So now here we go. Playing on the Steam version, you get 3 frames of input lag. So this is half of the amount of input lag that is on the Nintendo Switch version, and 1 frame more, possibly 2, depending on your arcade hardware, that you get on the arcade PCB. And so my verdict here is that if you want to be super hardcore, you want to go all the way, I would say maybe consider picking up a Psikyo PCB like Strikers 1945-2, because they are not all that expensive, at least 6 months ago. Today, PCB prices are getting out of hand, but I bought it for about $150 2 months ago, and I do think Scanline City might have some PCBs coming on in the future. I don't know what they'll be priced at, but you might want to check that out. And then if you want a more entry-level way to get into the game, definitely go with the Steam version over the Nintendo Switch version, which does have built-in leaderboards, which I do appreciate. Now, I do remember on the first Strikers Steam port that some of the accuracy in the second loop wasn't all that great, and I don't know if that holds true or not. So comment on that in the comment section and I'll pin you or whatever if you know if the second loop is accurate slowdown-wise. So yes, I give the Steam port my stamp of approval, pending any issues with slowdown, but from what I've seen, at least for the first loop, you can get your feet in the water. So in conclusion, I would say that Strikers 1945-2 is definitely one of those overlooked games, even among the shmup population. Psikyo has a bit of a curse in that not a lot of people play it all that actively, even though the games are absolutely fantastic. And I'm guilty of this myself, so in the future here, I'm going to be going for a 1-all clear of my Strikers board, which would be pretty cool. And also, it's going to be at Shmup Slam 5 if you want to come see it in person. And at the very least, you can check out the game on Steam, and hopefully in the future, we see even better ports on platforms like the PlayStation 4 and the Nintendo Switch. So thanks so much. We're getting so close to 10K, so please like, subscribe. Also check out the Electric Underground Reddit. Adios, everyone. Thank you to the $5 patrons: 100, Dingo, Another Joe, Anthony A, Anthony Iodice, Aaron Solis, Ben, Blur STG, Borgie22, Brian Reboot, Brian Shiver, Bubblegum Crisis 1394, Chris Yuzefovich, Chronic Burnout 3, Cook Some Soup, Corey Mark, DES Audio, Danielle Savage, Darren Griffin, Delta Tango 6, Disco Stas Leia, DJ 420 Praise It, Eric H, FCK, Full Set, Retro Schmupper, Hausu, Ilya, Kiwi, JLab, JB RPG, Jim Knockham, Joe Angelo, John Kelly, Game Boy Guru, K, K2, Kikoman 589, Larridge, Malaise, Mark Toms, Megadeth 859, Minung, Mechalin, Mitch LY, Queen Charlene, Nathaniel Davis, and Electron Neon Dagger Games, Okla Kugels, Philip Mason, Plasmo, Portal 63, Rattlecat, Raul, Rilskeen, Riff Mason, Rolf015, Scanline City, Seesaw FW, 7 Overdose, Shane Sintiansky, SLW, The Boot Rex, The Real Ikuzo, The Dirty Screech, The Old Bensta, TRM, Sugumo, Twilight EX, and Utakaya. Thanks for watching.